Hello everybody and welcome to the recap of round 3 Tbilisi World Cup. I'm here again on Chess24 International Master Sopiko Guramishvili. It's been crazy days. It's been, nerve-wracking, a lot of scandals, a lot of top players left the tournament, and I don't even know with what to start because it's been most exciting 3 days in Tbilisi, and a lot of things happened. Before I start, I would like to remind you that we have Chess24 premium membership promotion, and you have to pick your favorite player, mail it to support@chess24.com, and if your player advances, then you get 1 free month. If your player advances again, then 2 free months, and so on and so on. So make sure that if you're not a premium member yet, you have to buy the membership now and pick your favorite player who you think will win the World Cup, and then we will see how it will go. My goodness, I don't know from where to start. Let's start with the scandal because everybody is talking about it and everybody is amazed and everybody is expressing their own opinion. I also would like to express my opinion that I think that nobody in that scandal was right and there is no winner in this fight at all. So if you don't know what happened, this is what happened. Anton Kovalev was playing against Maxim Rechstein, but first 2 rounds he was also in same outfit, and on the 3rd round he came with same outfit, which is shorts. He was wearing shorts, and as we know, it is written in contract and regulations that there is a dress code for the tournament, and you have to be dressed in kind of official way, trousers and suit, or well, basically it's quite clear that shorts are not allowed, but the rules are a bit vague. Arbiter did not notice it for first 2 rounds that Anton Kovalev was playing with shorts, and in the 3rd round when he saw it, he decided that he has to warn the player. He came to him and said that you have to change your outfit because we have dress code here and you're not allowed to wear it. So I think Kovalev understood the situation, but he did not really show that he wanted to change or he wanted to go in his room. He also said that he had only shorts with him, which is quite mysterious when you're coming to the World Cup. You're just coming with the backpack and you have only shorts with you. It means that you did not read the contract, you did not read the regulations, and it's a little bit weird that you just want to play in shorts. It's such an amazing event in history that top 15 players are playing in the World Cup, and this is a really great tournament, and you're not kind of respecting the tournament, the organizers, your colleagues, if you're coming with shorts, only with shorts. You can come with shorts, but you can take shorts, but not only shorts. You have to have trousers. But in any case, I found Kovalev's behavior a bit strange because before he said, as I mentioned in my round 2 recap, when he beat Vishianand, he said that he did not really want to stay in Tbilisi because he had exams to pass in Canada, and he also was not thrilled that he kind of won the match, and he said that, okay, if I have to stay, I have to stay. What to do? And this is not the behavior which you're having after beating Vishianand. the legend player, world champion, ex-world champion. You have to be happy. You have to show your fans, and you have to show your like supporters that yeah, you did it and you're happy about it. Okay, then what happened is that was a bit strange for me. Then what happened is that Zurab Azmayparashvili came to him, and he told him that he has to undress, not undress, I mean he has to change the outfit, and he has to wear trousers. He asked him what was wrong with his outfit, and then Zura was very rude, saying that he looks like a gypsy. And this is not the thing, of course, which you have to say. Zura explained in the interview that he did not mean it this way, and it is true that in Georgian it is translated in different way, but generally it's not a nice thing to say to a player who is going to play a game, and before the game it's not the thing you have to do. So I don't think that Zura or Anton Kovalev or arbiter acted good in this situation. I think that all has their own fault in what happened and what kind of scandal was there, and Anton Kovalev felt quite offended with this sentence. He went to the room and he didn't come back, so the game was lost after 15 minutes, and he right away went to airport and flew back to Canada. I don't know how to explain this situation, because we have the background of second round that he didn't want to stay in Tbilisi and he had exams to pass. So this was kind of useful situation for him to go to Canada, in my opinion. It's a bit disrespectful to the players, because now Rothstein had 2 rest days, and there was no fight. It's of course not his fault at all. There was no fight and nothing, so he got through the 4th round. I see in chat that there are a lot of supporters of Anton Kovalev, that you can't be treated like that, especially before an important game. I completely agree with you that it is not the way to be treated, and it's not like I say that Azmayparashvili should not have said this word to him, especially before the game. But still, I find his reaction very, very unnecessary, and I find that all of them in this fight are wrong. Nobody is right. But this is, of course, there is another comment. What exactly say FIDE rules on dress code? Go Kovalev. Yeah, a lot of supporters. I also read a lot of articles, a lot of people who support him, but personally I cannot support this decision to just fly back just like this. But anyway, this is my own opinion, and you might say that I'm wrong, and he was right and he had to act like this. But yeah, everybody has her or his own opinion, and I cannot pick a side. I cannot support Kovalev, I cannot support Azmayparashvili, I cannot support the arbiter, because I think that all of them were wrong in this situation. And first of all, arbiter had to warn him in the 1st and 2nd round. If he noticed it in the 3rd round, then he should not have done it probably before the game, 5 minutes before the game. So that's why I think that this situation is very, very, very complicated. And yeah, I can read the comments now. You're incorrect, because I was completely out of order and Kovalev was very principled to leave. Yeah, I don't say that as my Mastershvili was right, but it's just I have my opinion that Kovalev did not act good, in sense that I have a background of him saying that he didn't want to be in Tbilisi after he beat Vachier, and that's very strange for me. But in any case, let's see what things happened in round 3, because this scandal is more or less clear, and everybody more or less have his or her own opinion. But now let's begin the games. It was an amazing round. You cannot imagine, so many top players left the tournament. First of all, this star, Magnus Carlsen, who I could never imagine would leave the World Cup after 3rd round. I mean, he would be kicked out from 3rd round. I would say, like, are you joking? It's impossible. But everything is possible. Magnus Carlsen, Vladimir Kramnik, Fabiano Caruana, a lot of players as well. Who else left the tournament? Also, these big names, such big names. You would never, ever consider Magnus leaving the tournament after 3rd round, or Kramnik leaving the 3rd round, or Fabiano Caruana, who left the 3rd round after tie breaks. And it was actually an amazing fight and lots of masterpieces. I prepared for you not tie-break games, because it is huge nerve-wracking games and lots of psychological pressure. So these moves are the games are tiny bit different level from the classical ones. So I prepared for you, I think, 8 games which are all masterpieces. It's brilliant games, and I am actually very impressed and very happy that I'm able to share with you such games and share with you my opinion about these games. It's just amazing. As for the game of Anish, it's been, my god, I nearly had heart attack. Yeah, Anish was playing against Indian player Saturaman, and you know me, I'm having trouble always playing against Indian players, even in Blitz or anywhere, because I think that the nation is super strong in chess. And I think that, wow, they are all super good. And of course, the first game he had a bit of advantage, but he didn't use it, so it ended in a draw. But second game was amazing. Second game, I generally am very positive, and any position I see, I am like, okay, let's hope for the best. Okay, maybe there are some tricks, or yeah, I don't take it like, oh my god, we're gonna lose it, and oh my god, we'll be out or something. But the classical second game, it was so hopeless. It was so hopeless that even I was saying that, yeah, it's over, but it's okay. There are lots of tournaments ahead, and I was starting to get together and try to support Anish after he would be out of the tournament, and I was trying to think what should I say to support him, to make him feel good, and so on. But the moment actually that his opponent started to think in a completely winning position, I started to have hopes. And I was talking to Arvin, and I was like, yeah, it gives me a little bit of hopes, and that he's thinking now. But the computer evaluation was like +4, +6, or just growing and growing. I was saying that I have hopes, but the evaluation was just growing and growing. Then we were watching, and Pramod actually saying that I was sure that Anish would find rook f3 12 minutes on clock. And he got this chance, and we were like, oh my god, we keep our fingers crossed that there is rook f3, there is rook f3. But somehow I felt that he wouldn't find it, because I don't know, I know his body language. So I was like, yeah, I don't know, I cannot watch this. It's like I'm so nervous, and I'm so into the game that you have a miracle chance. I was telling Erwin that okay, in this game we're just hoping for a miracle, because nothing can help us if not a miracle. And then he has this rook f3 chance, and he's not doing it, and we were like, oh my god, such a chance. And then we were like, yeah, okay, it's over. But afterwards, lots of things happened. You can see that so much pressure on a player who is lower rated than Anish, is a bit Hare Krishna in the previous round, and is like, he knows he's winning, and he thinks that, yeah, if he wins, the match is over, he is through round 4, and that's all great. So this kind of pressure probably worked badly for him, because when you're playing against lower rated player, you're like, when you have winning position, you're like, yeah, more confident, you don't see ghosts, because you know that you're stronger, and it is completely logical that you have winning position. But when you're playing against higher rated player, you have a winning position, then you're more concerned. You're more like, yeah, I don't want to give him chances, I don't want to give him any kind of counter play, and I don't want to, you're kind of saying ghosts. And I think that this is what helped Anish. And yeah, Sokolov said that Anish survived 1,000 deaths, and that's true. I also did the same. We all survived 1,000 deaths. The supporters of Anish all had tough times, but after you survive such game, then you're like, yeah, it is compared to a win, not to half point, yeah. And it feels so good that you're like in the tournament once again. And let me read the chat. I think, with my opinion, I made my viewers very angry. That Kolmagarov is saying that, Sopiko, I would never follow your shows again. Your account of the shorts event is completely misleading and unprofessional. Yeah, I don't know what to comment on this one. No, I think it's unprofessional to take shorts to the World Cup. Not my opinion, but anyway, let's get over to this topic and try to have a look at the games. Before I look at the games, let's finish Anish's topic, that afterwards he played tie breaks. He won the first game, and in second game, actually Daniel was sleeping at that moment, and I was in the room, so I could not follow his games in the hall. And I see second game, he goes Najdorf, and I'm like, why on earth you would go Najdorf when you're leading match with a point, full point? And then, of course, it went really wrong. He kind of mixed up something in the opening, and afterwards, 2 10-minute games were perfect. He completely got over his nerves and everything, and then of course he won a very nice 2 games. Okay. I want to keep my fingers crossed for him, and we are through the 4th round. We're playing against Ivanchik today, so I'm wishing him best of luck, and let's get started with the games. I cannot not show you the game of Carlsen versus Bouk-Sanji. I think that Bouk-Sanji, he played the game of his life. Huge masterpiece, and it was just amazing amazing game. This is the position. Sorry, this is not the position. This is the position they got after the opening, and here Bouk-Sanji, he played a very kind of interesting move, rook b8, which in the crowd was like, what is this move? Why did you make it? The idea was that he wanted that after bishop b3, queen b3, the b7 pawn is kind of defended, and he wanted to go d5 next. For example, bishop c2 was played and d5. And d5 is a pawn sacrifice, and after h3, h6, e takes d5, knight takes d5, and Carlsen accepted the sacrifice, knight e5, rook e5, bishop d6, and rook e1. And first, when I saw this position, I was looking without engine and stuff. I was like, yeah, there should be something in his mind that he's giving the pawn on e5 just like this, because if not the next move, then black is for sure much worse. After d4, white will go knight f3, d4, and everything would be controlled, everything would be protected, and everything would be fine for white. But black's next move, bishop h3, was an amazing sacrifice, and we thought that of course, after g takes h3, queen takes h3, Magnus is in front of huge choice, and the choice is that either you play knight f1 and you go for a game, or you play queen f3 and allow bishop h2, king h1, bishop g3, king g1, bishop g2, bishop h2, king h1, draw. This is how after queen h3 the game could have ended, but Magnus chose that this is not that scary for white, and he could go on to play, and rightly so. Of course, bishop h3, g takes h3, and queen h3 is not that white should resign here or something, and he can for sure play knight f1. But I think that this is what black player wanted, because he was okay with the draw as well, with black pieces. Everybody is okay with draw against Magnus, but he was also kind of looking forward to play, to go on to play. He played a very strong move, rook be8. And what is the idea of rook be8? For example, if you play something like rook e8, then it's very bad for white, as rook e6 and rook g6 is coming. Let's say d4 to control the e5 square, so that black doesn't play rook e5 and rook h5. Black anyway goes rook e6, and let's say white develops with bishop d2. It is true that we don't have rook g6 right now because the bishop is here, but we have a very strong move f5, and after f5 there is a huge move rook g6, and this is completely lost for white. So after rook e8, rook e8, rook e8 is not good. Let's say what happens after bishop d2. A normal developing move. There is no rook e6 or rook e5 because we did not exchange the rooks, but a very strong move g5. And what is the idea of g5? If we played knight f4 with the idea of queen g2, then bishop f4, it would be completely good for white to play here d4 with the idea of queen d3, and it would be just piece up. But after bishop d2, g5, let's say c4, the idea is that after knight f4, bishop f4, black can take with the pawn, g takes f4, and next is king h8 and rook g8, and white cannot do anything against this black. This plan, this position is really lost. So after rook b8, d4 was played, which is kind of the only move to go on and they play, and a very strong f5. Once again, closing this very important diagonal and also advancing the pawns. When you sacrifice something on the king side, then it is important to have pawns advanced, because if, let's say, f4, f3, then you have already a huge threat to mate your opponent. Bishop b3, c6, and f4. This is completely understandable that white doesn't want to allow any f-pawn advance, so he blocks it. And here black could play direct g5, which would be much stronger than what happened in the game. And the idea is that if you take f takes g5, then of course f4 or even stronger rook e4 is there, and after rook e4, f takes e4, then this is very bad for white. I don't even know how to defend it. Let's say queen e2, then simple rook f1, queen f1, and bishop h2 is very lost for white. But he played king h7. He wanted to be a bit more prophylactic, to have his king first on h7 and then advance it, advance the g pawn, because after g5 you have also the g file with rook g8. And here Magnus played a move which was, I think, decisive mistake in the game. Bishop d5. It was completely necessary to play rook e2, and the idea of rook e2 is that after g5 or any type of moves, I have rook g2 and rook h2. So rook h2 is kind of a threat now, and you don't really want to take rook e2, queen e2, because it would not give anything to white. Let's say knight f4, because the pawn is hanging, we have to grab it. Bishop f4, and there is a very strong move, rook e1, controlling the e file and getting the last piece in the center. Yes, it is true that black has a pawn majority on the king side, but we have a piece for it. And let's say rook f6, then a very strong move, queen g2. This is how we defend all threats, because rook g6 has to be defended right now. And after queen g2, rook g6 does not work because of bishop g8, and after king moves, then we just take this guy over here, and it's completely winning for white. I'm able, by the way, to read the chat, so if you have any questions in any line, please feel free to ask. I'll try to analyze it. I'm sure Magnus Carlsen saw Queen f3 draws, but he went for more. That's for sure. Queen f3 is the move if you want to play for a draw, if you want to allow the draw. But I think that Magnus did not feel that much danger after knight f1, so he went for it. Okay, so rook e2 was necessary. Knight f4 has to be played. Rook h2, queen g4, take on g4, bishop f4, bishop f. If bishop f4 here, then it would be very, very nasty to play a intermediate check here, and when the king goes, then play rook g2, because h5 would not work because of bishop g6. So after bishop f4, rook f4, this position I think is pretty unclear, but for sure white is doing quite well. It's not easy to win this one. I think that white has slight advantage because the pieces are much stronger in this position rather than the pawns, which are not advanced yet, but black for sure has good compensation for it. Okay, let's go back to the bishop d5, and after bishop d5, c takes d5, rook e3, bishop e3, and another move, another crushing move, g5, which we saw earlier in the games came, and I think Magnus had complete cold shower here because probably he underestimated this move, or he underestimated the attack at all. He took quite a long time to decide what to play here. F takes g5 again is not a good possibility, because after f4, queen c2, let's say check, there is rook f5. It's important to play rook f5 because king h8 would run into queen g6, and if you take this guy here, then the d6 bishop is hanging as well, and king is very weak, so white has always a chance to give perpetual check. So after queen c2, rook f5, important move, and bishop cannot move anywhere. Let's say if he moves bishop f2, Pramat is saying that f takes g5 was forced, as said by Sokolov. And GSP is saying, great analysis, you're forgiven for the shorts. Thank you. Okay, bishop f2, and here bishop f2 and f3. I don't know if f takes g5 was forced or not, but the thing is that in any case black is winning. You can compare these two moves, which one is giving more chances, but if black plays correctly, nothing can help white. So after bishop f2 and f3, we are threatening to mate, give mate on g2, and let's say bishop e1, we have queen on the second file, and everything is kind of defended, but we have a very nice king h8, and you can see that white's pieces, rook a1 is still not playing, bishop e1, knight f1 not doing anything, and queen c2 is not active to give checks or something. And after king h8, there is a huge threat of rook g5, and I think white should resign here. Same goes for bishop c1. Okay, after f3, he has a tempo that everything is protected on second file. He can play knight e3. The queen f2 is a huge queen f5, sorry, is a huge threat. But if not this very annoying f2 move, then white would be doing okay. But after f2, it's lost for white, because what you can do here, you cannot move your king, you have to play queen f2, rook f2, or rook g5, and black is winning. So after bishop e3, g5, white played king f2. The idea of king f2 is that you want to escape from the danger zone. And I would say that I like king f2 much more because even in game it gave chances to Magnus, because then black should have been very, very precise. But after f takes fg and f4, black's play is very easy. What he has to see is that after queen c2, you just come rook f5, close this diagonal, and then go f3. So I think that f takes g5 was losing much faster than king f2. King f2 still stays in the game. But g takes f4, queen f3, f takes e3, you have to give this bishop, because if not queen f3 and you go, let's say, bishop, you want to save this bishop and you go bishop d2, then after queen h4, king f3 and rook g8, black is mating and white king cannot escape anywhere. So g takes f4, queen f3, f takes e3, knight e3, and queen h2, king f1, and here another super strong move which Bu had to find is rook g8. He did it, he found it, and that's why I call that he played the game of his life. I think he, of course, has many amazing games, but against Magnus Carlsen to play such masterpiece is just needs just an applause. Okay, so after rook g8, what is the idea of rook g8? First of all, we have to understand why queen b2 was not that great. Queen b2, rook e1, queen c3, and queen d5, bishop g3. Computer is still saying that black has huge advantage, and of course I completely agree with it, but white is still in the game, and we remember what happened in Anisha's game of second classical round. So anything can happen. That's why I think that rook g8 really cuts many options for white here, and queen f5, rook g6, king e1. This was the move which gave black an option to be precise here. And this is the moment where Bu was not precise and gave chance, a miracle chance to Carlsen to survive. But I already said in my previous show, and I will repeat it in this one, that when you're always under pressure, you are not you're not expecting gifts. He played h5 here. Completely understandable that he wanted to hide his king on h6 and then have huge threat of rook g1. But it was much more stronger, and it was necessary to play instead of h5 king g7, queen d7, king h8, queen d8, king h7, queen d7. Black king will escape with a very nice tango dance, rook g7, queen f5, king h8, queen c8, and rook g8. And you see, there is no more check. Queen f5, then rook g1, knight f1, and queen b2. This is completely winning for white, as for black, as white cannot go this because of bishop g3 and mate is coming soon. Once again, I want to show you to pay attention how the king danced and what was the idea of it. Queen d7, king h8, queen d8, and we don't go here rook g8 because there is queen f6 check. So that's why we go king h7 first, queen d7, and rook g7, queen f5, and now white queen is on white diagonal, king h8, queen c8, and rook g8. And now we see that there is no more check. If queen was on d8, then queen would have check on f6. But after queen c8, there is no more queen f6, and after queen f5, you go rook g1. So that's why king g7 was much stronger, but it is tiny bit difficult to see that you need to get your queen on c8, get your opponent's queen to c8 to escape from checks. Okay, h5 was played here, and what could help white here is I want to ask you actually, what do you think? King d1 was played in the game, but this is not the move, this is the losing move. What should white play here and why? We already know that king h6 is the threat to come out of the pin, and then rook g1. And how can we survive? Because we have one tempo, one precious tempo, and what we have to do. Pramad is saying that rook d1, I read the article. Yeah, well done. Rook d1 is the move because the idea is to get rook d2. This is the only piece that was not in the game and was on its starting position. So rook d1, queen b2, if now king g7, that would not work, because now we have rook d2 and rook g1, knight f1, and we see that the crushing plan was not to give a check on g1 and have knight f1, but that after knight f1 we had queen b2. We had such queen b2 that you could not go rook d1 because of bishop g3 mate, if you remember in what we said in the previous analysis. Now let's say that instead of h5, why did not black take queen b2? Because after queen b2, then this queen is still on a fate, and there is rook b1 and rook b7. So this is not what black is looking for. King e1, h5, and rook d1. This was a chance. Queen b2 now, and queen d7. And this is perpetual, because if you go king h6, then there is knight f5. Knight f5, king g5, and knight d6, and actually white is winning here. But after queen d7, you have to go king g8 or even king h8 to have rook g8, but it would not help you because let's say here, if we do the same maneuver with rook g7, then this guy is hanging on d6. While we had queen on h2, the bishop on d6 was not hanging, and you could not play moves like this. Okay, so rook d1, queen b2, queen d7, king g8, queen e8, king h7, and queen d7. This is perpetual check for white. Instead, king d1 was played in the game. I have to mention that Magnus was in huge time trouble, and when you're in time trouble, it's not so easy to defend yourself in such tough positions. And after king d1, king h6, knight c2, trying to cover the second rank and this diagonal, and using the chance that, okay, rook g1 is not that great, because after knight e1, queen b2, there is either rook b1 or queen f6 check first. But of course, Bu played another brilliant plan, h4, and he kind of does not pay attention what's going on queen's side, and he's using the fact that white's pieces are not developed. White's king is in huge danger, and it's just materially this position is equal. So h4 is just passed pawn, which he's pushing ahead. Knight e1, h3, knight f3, queen g2, and I want to show you the beautiful finish of rook sacrifice, kind of sacrifice. Queen g4, rook g4, knight f3, and rook g1. This is the way to finish the game against the world champion, because of course after knight g1 there is h2, and white has to resign, and he did resign on rook g1. All right, I had to cover I think this game in deep analysis, because I think that this is very nice game and a big masterpiece from Bu Xianzhi. Another masterpiece that was played in the first round of in the first game of third round is by Levon Aronian against Maxim Malakhov, and they had actually brilliant match, because then Maxim Malakhov was able to play fantastic game, another masterpiece against Levon Aronian. He was back in the match, he leveled the match, and they went for tie breaks, and tie breaks was completely crazy. First 2 draws, then again 2 draws in 5-minute blitz game. Then first 10-minute game Aronian won, then Malakhov got together and he beat Aronian once again, but in 5 minutes blitz games Aronian was much stronger and he won 2-0, so he also qualified to the 4th round. Okay, this is the position where white pieces Levon Aronian is playing, and I think that this is a very nice moment to stop. Generally, he played such a game. This game is just a very strategic positional game where he used pluses all over the board. He used little pluses on the queen side, then on king side, and from both flanks he was kind of suffocating the opponents just like this. Knight g6 and knight g6. Generally, you want to go in this type of position when you go knight h4. You want to go knight f5. But after knight f5, bishop f5, e takes f5, and knight h4 is bad for white. So if white had castled already, then white would consider to go knight f5. But there is no castle, so knight f5 is bad, and he took on g6, very nice one, h takes g6, and castle. Let's stop and take a look at this position. Nothing dramatic is happening for either side. White has, I think, a slightly pleasant position because he has 2 bishops, and black has to do something on the side, because if he won't do anything on the queen side, then white will try to open up the position with f4, and we know that when we have two bishops, it's completely necessary to open up files diagonals for them, because they are much stronger in attack and open position rather than closed position. So after castle, c6, f4, b5, take, h3. This is what I meant, that black has to do something on the queen side to a bit have a play on these c file, and let's say if he manages to play bishop e6 or bishop b7 and rook c8, b4, then he would have counterplay on the queen side. Otherwise it would be just one-sided game, 2 bishops and having attack on the king side. Queen b6 was played, king h2, and bishop e6. I think this is a slightly not precise move. It was necessary to play bishop d7 to avoid a4, because a4 is met with b takes a4. But I have to mention that after king h2 and bishop e6, you're focused that white is playing on the king side, and you don't expect move like a4. This is amazing because now Aronian is playing on both sides. He's showing that yet I don't need to develop my rook or the bishop, because I have to open the files and I have to tickle this guy on b5 a bit, and I have to show that no, this is not the strong side where you're playing, but this is also my side. So after a4, a6, queen b2, here Malakhov played again a tiny bit imprecise move, knight d7. I think that it was very much needed to play queen c7, and the idea of queen c7 is to play d5. Yes, it is true that black is opening the files himself and the diagonals, but the point is that these pawns on c3 and d3, they are not very strong. So if we open the files we open the diagonals, we will have counterplay on these pawns. For example, if let's say move like bishop e3, then it would be met with d5, and this is already very nice for black, just because after let's say AB and take on e5, take on a1, or can take on e5 directly. Rook a1 would not make much sense here, because after queen e5, let's say king g1 or king h1, then d takes e4, and bishop d4 would not help white, because after bishop queen g3, this pawn is still very strong, and ed3 is happening next move, so it is big advantage for black. That's why queen c7 had a big idea of d5. White of course can play f5, take, bishop d7, bishop g5 and d5, but this is very unclear position, because yeah, I have opened the files, but black has center, and such center is always dangerous because it's a moving one, it's not blockaded, and they're generally I like knights very much, and especially when we have such holes on g3. Maybe one day I will go e5, and if this e4, and if this bishop goes, then knight h5, knight g3 might be there, so it's quite annoying position for white, I would think. But of course after queen c7, white can just take, play bishop d2, d5, and play this position. It is very unclear, but I think that black is in control of everything and is doing very fine. Queen b2, knight d7, tiny bit imprecise move, rook b1, and rook a b8. Once again, a bit imprecise move, because we needed this rook to be on a file, and why we needed that is because we have to after exchanging we have some annoying rook a2. This is why after rook b1, once again black had a chance to play queen c7, even if it's dropping a pawn. Let's say after ab, and queen b5. Well, queen b5 would be really bad because we have rook eb8, but after ab and bishop d2, then we have rook a2, so that's why I said that rook is necessary on a8. But of course after queen c7, white could play f5, g takes f5, e takes f5, and bishop d5, and here ab, queen b5 once again would not be good, because we have not rook eb8, because then queen d5 would happen, and the rook on a8 is hanging. But right now rook a b8 or even bishop g2, queen d5 and rook b1, winning for black. So I think that queen c7 once again was very interesting move, and let's say if we pass and if we put bishop to d2, then black would take b takes a4, open the b file, and the knight c5 is there, so it would give black much more play. Rook a b8, slightly imprecise move. It's not like in this game black made a very big blunder and lost the game. No, he made such moves like a bit imprecise here, a bit imprecise there, and then it led to a very, very big advantage for white. A takes b5, a takes b5, rook f3, and the decisive mistake was to play f6 here. f6 was played in the game, but even if we're losing a tempo, we have to go rook a8 back. But when you played rook b8, you don't want to go rook a8 back. It's dropping the pawn, queen b5, but we have once again, not queen c6. We have once again queen c7. Now c3 pawn is hanging and rook b8 is there as well. And if white plays queen b7, then just queen c3, d4, queen d4, bishop e3, queen a4 is okay for black. But if white plays d4 right away to get to d3 after rook e b8, then we take on d4, and knight f6. And now we see that these pawns are not so great. Let's say if e5, then it's already bad because we have rook a b8, queen d3, and bishop f5. So after e5, not e5, sorry, after knight f6, then I don't know what white should do. You cannot really defend this pawn on e4, because then rook e b8 and now queen is in trouble here. You have to go queen g5, take, and take on c1. So this is kind of the defense in a tactical way. If knight f6, and black has great compensation for the pawn. Actually, the pawn he will just get back it very soon. f6. He wanted to have a space for the bishop, but after f5, take, and bishop d5, rook g3, rook e7, this position does not look like completely lost, but it is very, very bad, because bishop h5 was played, e4, d4, bishop c4, bishop f4, rook a1, rook a8 now to get to a2, but it's already very late because we have rook a1, rook d8, and rook a3. And Levon very slowly but very surely won this game, and we have to understand that yes, we have two bishops, but and we have open files, but our opponent also has a little bit passed pawn on e4, so we have to be a bit careful. But look at this knight, it's not doing anything. d4 completely shuts it down. b5 is weakness. It's not an advantage for black. And let's say knight f8, queen a1. Now we get the a file. So you see, Levon got tiny bit advantage on the king side, tiny bit advantage on the queen side, and after bishop f7, not bishop f7, but first rook a6, queen c7, and now very strong bishop e2 to emphasize that the b5 pawn is a weakness and it's not an advantage. So bishop c4 was played, but after bishop c4, queen c4, and rook d6, Levon won a pawn and won the game easily afterwards. Another great masterpiece of Levon Aronian to play on both sides and to play on to suffocate the opponent, and let's see now the game of Svidler against Onishuk. If you hear some background noise, I don't know, it's from outside, I don't know what's going on. But any case, sorry for that. Okay, so bishop e6 was played in this game, and this is not the very much discussed opening. Bishop e6, takes e6, and c3. And here there are games of Carlsen, there are games of Caruana, of course, but after knight d7, this is the position that they got. Knight d7 is a move because he wanted to play d5 to protect the e5 pawn, and now white has to do something. Great analysis, Sopiko. Most GMs would skip all of these details. Thank you very much. I'm happy that I have such feedback. I will try my best to share all my thoughts, what I have on the games. So c3, knight d7, and knight b3, d5, bishop e3, take on c3, take on c3, d takes e4, and d takes e4. This is the position I want to stop, and I want you to take a look at it, to the pawn structure. Okay, we have three islands in the position, A, C, and E. But this pawn on e6 is doubled, so it has its advantages and it has its disadvantages as well. Advantages is that it controls the d5 square and f5 square, and also f file is open. And the disadvantage of it is that after in the end game, or when we trade the pieces, then these pawns will be much weaker than our pawns on the king side, and this pawn can be cannot be protected very well. You still need to play some kind of moves to create a counterplay on the king side. So after b takes c3, d, I think that this was a big decision from Onishuk, because you kind of clarify the center, and I think that this was kind of a mistake to clarify the center and not to keep this d5 pawn, because then if you keep it, you're flexible. You can either take it, or you can either go d4 at some point. I think bishop d6 would give much more chances to black to open the diagonal for the queen, maybe one day to play queen e7 or queen f6, go to g6, get this b file with rook b7, rook b8, but not clarify the situation in the center. D takes e4, d takes e4, and rook b5. Maybe this was his plan, to play rook b5 so that he plays a rook queen b8 afterwards, and queen b7, rook b8, but maybe he missed this very, very strong move, queen e2. And the idea of queen e2 is brilliant. He is not dropping this knight, but he is going queen c4, and as I said, if we trade the pieces, then it's good for white, because these pawns are weakness. They are good in middle game, but not in end game. So let's say if rook b5, queen c6, now we can see already a6 and e6, both pawns are in danger. So queen e2 and queen b8. Queen c4. Once again, everything, Svidler was very, very fast, and he grabbed all advantage like in one go, like this, with tempos. Knight d8, because the e6 pawn was hanging, rook a d1. You don't want to allow rook d7, of course, so bishop d6 was played, And now rook b1. And why rook d1 and rook b1? This is important maneuver because after rook d1 you provocate bishop d6, and then you go rook b1 because this bishop is not good on d6. It was protecting g5, so now we can go knight g5 is kind of a little threat. Rook b1, b7, knight bd2 was played. Now knight g5 wouldn't be that great because black's idea is to change the queens after queen c6, and knight c6. Yes, it's dropping the pawn on e6, but knight e6 wouldn't be good here because after rook e8, knight has to go back, and now rook b8. There is knight d2, but we will change everything and get the pawn on a5 as well. So after knight d2, queen c6, rook b5, ab, queen b3. We don't want to change the queens because then our a pawn would be weak. Queen a6, rook a1, knight c5, queen b1 goes back, knight f7, and I want to stop at this moment and explain the position a bit. Now white pieces and black pieces regrouped, and what we got is passed pawn. When passed pawn is blocked by queen, it's usually a very good sign for white because queen is most powerful piece, and when it blockades it doesn't do anything. So we have kind of free hand, free queen on the queen side or king side or the center. And here Svidler played very nice move c4, opening up and getting rid of this a bit weak pawn on c3, because you don't want to allow moves like knight a4 and knight c3, right? So c4, and if b takes c2, then queen c2. B takes c4, then queen c2, and knight c4. This would be just amazing position for white. c4, c6 was played, but after c takes b5, c takes b5, knight b3, we are trying to exchange the pieces because, as I said, these pawns then they would be weak. Knight d7 was played in the game. It was much better. Knight a4, queen f1. Now we want to take on a4, rook a8 and h3. Tiny bit advantage for white. And look at this a5 pawn and knight b3. They are holding two powerful pieces, queen and rook in the game. So knight b3, d7, queen d3, rook c8, h3, h6, and knight fd2. I'd like to stop here this game because white has a clear advantage. The pieces are not in play. The pawns are very weak. This pawn is also weak. It's not a passed pawn, but it's weak pawn, and we have a very strong passed pawn on a file. You definitely have to check out this game because Peter won it very nicely, but I don't want to continue it because we have much more games to cover and we don't have so much time. So let's go to another game, and this was the game of Dubov against Vachier-lagrave. They drew their first game, so this game had a big importance. If Vachier-lagrave would win or Dubov would win, the match would be over. White's last move was knight e1. And to be honest, I like here black's position because I like generally when the pawns are advanced, we have much more space. And here Vachier-lagrave played a very tricky, inviting move, I would say, a5. And what is this move, a5? We want to go a4, but inviting, I said, because there is bishop a5. Of course, you see b4, take, and queen b4, and this position, I think, is about evaluation. If you evaluated that white has compensation, then you go for it. If you evaluated that no, it's not enough compensation, then you don't go for it. So a5 was a strong move, because I think that Van Hau evaluated the position in a right way. It was necessary to play h3 or knight c2 here to improve your knight's position and ignore the fact that black is advancing on the queen side. a4, knight e3, ab, rook a3, queen c2, and queen e8. With the idea of rook a7, I think black still has pleasant position, but white is doing fine as well. Now let's take a look at a5, bishop a5, b4. This is definitely not what Kuzubov missed, because bishop a5, you see that after b4 your bishop is trapped and you have to sacrifice it, but I think that he just went for it. He just went for the compensation because he has 3 pawns in a piece. Now let's see why it's not enough compensation and what is wrong with white's position. What is wrong with white's position is that pawns are not much advanced, and pawns and dark squares are very weak. If we had pawn on b5, pawn on a4, and rook on a2, then it would be completely different situation. But we need so much tempos to achieve it. Knight e5, queen d2, queen a7, h3, because knight g4 was a threat, queen d4, queen b2, trying to exchange it, but we don't want to exchange because then white definitely would have compensation. Let's say queen b2, rook b2, we already threatened to go b4, b5, yeah, there is a rook b7 or rook a7, but then d4, d5 would be unpleasant, so definitely queen e3 or queen e3 is much more problematic for white rather than changing the queens. Queen e2, queen b6, knight f3, g takes f3. There was no other way, because look, this knight cannot come. Queen on b6 is perfect. The pawn cannot move because b3 is hanging. Knight cannot go here because rook a2 is there. So what to do? If I go, let's say, king h1 to go out from this pin, then after rook e7, I'm in trouble to defend this pawn on a2, and I don't know what I can do. That's why knight f3 was played, knight f3, g takes f3, and after rook a7, rook a1 and bishop h3, it's already clear that it's definitely winning for black. So after, let's once again look at this position, queen b4, knight e5, and queen d2. You need to get this queen on e3. Queen d2, 7, and most important diagonal, a7, g1 is controlled, black squares are controlled, and pieces are much stronger than the pawns. All right, let's go now to see the game of Fedosiev Nakamura. This was brilliant game, and after the game they asked Fedosiev that, wow, you kind of kicked out the top player, what are your thoughts about it? And he was very nice, saying that I'm not surprised. It did not came unexpected to me, because this year I'm playing fantastic chess, and he's true. He really improved. It is true. He's right. He really improved a lot this year. He crossed 2700. He kicked out Hikaru Nakamura with a brilliant win. And let's take a look at it. e4, e5, knight f3, knight c6, and knight c3. Not so much seen in top games. Knight f6, bishop b5, and knight d4. Bishop c4, bishop c5, d3. I would not comment anything here. Knight e5, and this is a critical moment. c6, I think Hikaru played this inviting move c6 because usually you might consider to play d6, but c6, knight e5, already I think white is pressing a bit, and he does have a little advantage. d5 would be necessary to play here. E takes d5, c takes d5, bishop b3. Castle, rook e8, rook e1, or bishop f4 first, bishop d6 and rook e1, bishop f5, and here I think white is doing slightly better than black, because first of all we have a pawn, extra pawn, but black's pieces are not so bad as well. After bishop c8 and bishop a4, white has slight advantage, rook e7, but of course black is not doing very bad, because this knight on d4 is quite difficult to kick out, and you still need good place for your pieces to find. Let's say queen d2 would run into knight h5. You don't want to allow that, so black definitely has station for it. But he castled and allowed this knight f7, rook f7 sack. Bishop e3, and this is the moment where I think that something went very wrong for Hikaru in the opening. Because let's say if you play d5 now, which probably was better move than the move in the game, then after h3 is a necessary move to control the knight g4, and maybe g4 advances there. Bishop a6, for example, would go run into knight a4, and after bishop b6, knight a4, knight e6, take on b6, and e5. I prefer white's position much more, because after knight e8 we have more pawns, we have space, and we have d4, g6 and g4. I see a question, but how to evaluate giving up two pieces is better for the rook and two pawns? Well, here in this position I think it is very clear, because black's pieces are not standing on good squares. He still needs to develop, and we have very fast movement of the pawns. Let's say after knight take and bishop e3, we already threaten some nasty e5 and this type of moves. So you have to, we already actually threaten knight a4 move, and then c3. So here black has to do something. He played the move knight e6, bishop c5, knight c5, knight e8, and look at this position. Yes, you have two pieces for the rook, but look at your king, look at the queen on d8, and all these pieces that are still standing on the starting position. If you give tempos to black to develop, then yeah, then it would not be that great for white, because two pieces can go to play, and it's much better for black to have active pieces, even if there is two pawns. But if you don't have it, then white has to be very quick to use this initiative, grab it, and play something that is completely necessary, like d4, knight e6, castle, 6, f4. Take, I would go to the critical position fast, because we have to cover other games as well. d5, c5, knight d5, and it simplified the position, simplified a bit, and to my eye it looked like, optically it looked like, yeah, white maybe gave away a bit of advantage, but no, because we have very strong e5 pawn, and the pieces are still on their starting position. black is trying definitely to exchange some pieces in the center, but the main problem what is in this position is black king and the f file. Because black is not developed, because there is a f file open, this position is a big advantage for white. Let's say if move like knight 6 c7 was played with the idea of bishop e6, then already knight f6 is there. So knight d5, knight 8 c7 was played, c4, bishop d7, he somehow developed, but now it starts the attack. Knight f6 is the problem, so knight f8, queen f3, knight g6, rook a d1, and look at this. Black queen cannot go to a nice place because she is defending the c7 knight, and you of course don't want to trade this because it would be first of all here it's losing the piece, but second of all if you traded it before then you would get this cd5, and these pawns are very, very dangerous. So after rook a d1, knight e6, h4. This is the move that I wanted to show you, a brave decision, Fedosiev. It's not the first choice of a computer, but then after you make it, computer is like, wow, this is winning as well. So engine doesn't see it directly. Well done, Fedosiev, for making this move h4. He wants to advance h5. Queen h4 loses because of queen and queen d7. You don't want to allow knight h4 was played, but you don't want to allow h5, although it was much better than what happened in the game to play king h8, h5, knight gf6, and sorry, gf8. You cannot take here because then after queen e4, queen g5, rook f5, there is queen g4, but because we cannot take on e5 because of queen d1. But after queen g4 and knight g4, there is a very nice move, and I would like you to ask to take your time and spot what kind of move could win here on spot. Let's see if you have any opinion how to finish off the opponent. Let's see if you're gonna spot it. I would give you a hint that it is a very powerful move, and it right away clarifies the situation. That's not a useful hint, I guess. So I'll knight c7. Well done, well done. Yes, knight c7 is there. Knight c7 and rook d7. The 7th rank is ours. The knight has to go, but after rook f7 there is no chance that h6 is coming, b7 pawn is hanging. There is no chance that black can survive in this game. Let's get back to the game. Knight h4 was played, but after queen f7, king h8, knight f6, a very strong move. Knight f6, g takes f6, rook d7 is there, and knight f6, queen b6 was played, rook f2, and bishop a4. Already black cannot do anything because knight g5 runs into knight d7, knight f7 would be bad because of knight b6, ab, and rook f7, and knight d7, queen e3, queen d5, knight e4 is bad because queen d4 take, we have just extra pawn and much better position than black. So after rook f2, queen a4 was played, bishop a4 was played, rook d6, although much stronger was to play knight d5, queen c5 and rook f1, but rook d6 is also winning, knight g5, queen e7, knight f5 and rook b6. A bit of simplification, but after rook b7, knight g6 and knight h5, knight d5 was also possible here, and after bishop c6, rook c7, bishop a4 and knight e7. Anyhow, this position is winning for white, and Fedoseev converted this advantage, pulled the point and went through the fourth round. Now it's time to take a look at the game of Dubov versus Artemiev. Before we take a look at this game, I would like to make a little bit of introduction to it, because it was a very nice and honest interview with Daniel Dubov. What was his strategy for this game and what was his strategy generally for a tournament. We remember that he kicked out Sergei Karyakin in the second round, so then he had again his countryman Artemiev, and when there was a poll, everybody was rooting for him, and he kind of kept himself together and made his fans and supporters happy. He said that his strategy for this game and generally for the tournament is gambling. And even if he gets worse position, he wanted to take his opponent out of his comfort zone and out of his preparation, and then he wanted a fighting game. If you were following Dubov's game against Artemiev with the engine, then you would think that, oh my god, what is he doing? Oh my god, this is not the and when he won, you might have said that, oh, so lucky, he got so lucky because his opponent was winning all the time. But if you look at his game without engine, you would be like, yes, this position is completely unclear, and it was a big fight, and finally he won a game. So let's take a look at it. It was my favorite opening: knight e4, c5, knight f3, d6, d4, c takes d4, and we will get to bishop g5 line, e6, f4, h6, bishop h4, bishop e7, queen f3. This is all theory, but Artemiev went for a slightly not popular line: knight bd7, castle, and g5. Very, very common pawn sacrifice to get to the e5 square. F takes g5, h takes g5, and of course main move here is main continuation, bishop g5, but Dubov decided to go for a game, so he already started to play move like bishop g3, queen c7, and he played a brilliant, I would say, bishop b5 for a practical chance. And this bishop b5 was over the board. He played over the board. He said that this was not the preparation, but it was over the board because he wanted to get a game and get a very fighting chess. When you see this move, you're like, probably, I think that he had a bit of idea. It's not completely just out of blue coming this bishop b5, but as an opponent, when you see bishop b5, you're like, okay, this looks a bit strange, but you might be tiny bit afraid because you didn't go b5, and the guy goes bishop b5 without b5, without even taking a pawn. And his strategy was that he did take out his opponent out of the preparation and out of his comfort zone, but he did get worse position, and he did get a very, very bad position, I would say. But it was not so easy. AB, you should not be afraid. You have to take AB. Pramod is asking what is the threat of bishop b5. The threat is not anything, just a developing move, inviting move that I want to get my knight on b5, and you're making free space for the rook. So AB, you have to accept the sacrifice, knight b5, queen c5. And here white has two options, either to go bishop f2 or to go bishop d6. Bishop d6, take, and knight d6, king f8, rook f1, and rook h6. I think that black is doing very fine. King g7 is next move, and he kind of consolidated everything. And if he gets the development, then he will have an extra piece. But of course it's not so easy, because computer is saying -1.5, -2, but optically it doesn't look that easy. AB, knight d5, queen c5, bishop f2 is another option, and on bishop f2 there is a very, very strong g4. Queen b4 is kind of a mistake, because after a3, queen a5, there is a nice rook d6, knight d6, bishop d6, knight d6, knight f8, and king f8 and knight b5. Okay, now look at this position. We are full rook down. Oh, okay, we have 2 pawns for the rook, but we are rook down. But this position is very unclear, because we have weak king, our pieces are not developed, and they are all tied to each other. The knight cannot move because f7 is weak. You cannot kick out this very strong super monster knight on d6. Thus, the bishop cannot develop. This knight cannot go anywhere, because then the knight would be hanging. And all pieces are like not together, but over the board on every square, not doing much things. So this is definitely great compensation for white. That's why g4 is important. And if you take on f6, bishop f6, bishop c5, knight c5, you give this rook back, but then black would have 2 pieces for the rook, because this knight cannot come out. So after bishop b5, he did not accept this sacrifice, and he played the move g4, queen e2, and e5. Once again, bishop d7 could be played, bishop d7 and queen e2, but of course this was not the idea of Daniil Dubov. He wanted his opponent to take on b5 and to get some play on the d6 pawn. So queen e5, queen e2, e5. Again, a takes b5 would be better, queen c5 and knight d6, king f8, king f8 and e5. And here it is very unclear, but black has to be strong, go for bishop d6, rook d6 and knight h5. And the problem is the e5 pawn. We are now threatening knight g3, rook e1, and rook take on g3 first, and rook a5 would give black big advantage. But instead, e5 was played, knight f5, ab, knight b5. Finally, Dubov achieved what he wanted. He got this knight on b5, but still worse position. Queen c6, knight d6, take, knight d6, king f8, and a3. If you look at this position with computer, then you would see that both of the players are playing the game with engine, because they are both playing with they are playing first lines. A3 necessary, logical. We don't want to give up this pawn, and we don't go king b1 to challenge to get the queen afterwards, or a4 or something, and get a tempo on a2. Knight e8, knight f5, rook a4. So far, Artemiev played very precise and very nice, even though he had more chances to get more advantage, but still he has advantage, and e4 pawn now is in danger, but it costed him a lot of time, and we know that when you're in time pressure, much more mistakes are coming. If queen g4, then queen e4, rook e4, and bishop e1, f6 would be good for black. That's why he wanted to keep the game. He went bishop e1, very daring move, dropping the e4 pawn. But first, knight df6 was played, because it's much more important to develop and get all your pieces in the game rather than taking the pawn. Knight g3, knight e4, rook d8. And this was the moment where he had to go king e7 and give these two pieces on c8 and e4, but after queen c4, take, and we have exchange, bishop b4, king d7, we have an exchange, and position is much more simplified, no danger for black, and it's winning for black. Sorry. After rook d8, bishop e6 was played, slightly bad move, bishop b4, rook b4, a b4. Rook b4 is necessary because king g7 would drop this knight on e4, so bishop b4 closed the defense of the knight on e4, rook b4, take, knight g3. And what Vladislav was hoping for is that after queen e5, he would have knight h1, and if queen h8, king e7, and he has three pieces in the for the rook, and completely winning position. But what he missed is that after knight h1, there is a very, very nasty intermediate move, b5, queen b6, and the idea, of course, is that if you now take if you go queen b6 and now queen h8, king e7, this guy on e8 is hanging, queen e8, and now it's waiting for white and not for black anymore. Rook b4, ab, and knight g3, queen e5, king e7 was played, but already it's not the same, because after rook hd1, rook h2, b5, black is still hoping for something, but nothing can be easy here, because let's say queen g2, then rook e8, king e8, and queen b8 is mate for white. If after b5, queen b6, this was a move that you have to play, queen g3, now rook e8 would not make big sense, because d8 square is protected, queen b8 and king e7, you cannot mate black. Then queen g6, rook h5, queen a3, and queen c5. Rook h5 is important because queen a3 is there, and you would have queen c5. But it is easy to make a mistake in this position, especially in time trouble, and after b5, knight e2 was played, king b1, and he probably, queen e2 was also possible, queen e2, queen g2, queen d3, with a very unclear play, but after king b1, queen c4 cannot help, it's over for black, because king b1, now white has two threats, take on h2 and take on e2. The point is that when the knight was on g3, yeah, when the knight was on g3, the rook was not hanging. So move like king b6 and rook e8 or queen g3 would just lose a piece. But after queen in this check and king b1, there is the file open, the diagonal open, and the rook is hanging on h2. So let's say queen g2 would be bad because of take, queen b8 and mate again. Queen b6 would be bad because now the rook is hanging. Queen c4 was played, but it's not what black wanted, because after rook e8, take, queen b8 check, very important. You cannot take queen h2 because it's mate. But first queen b8 check, bishop c8, and now queen h2. Knight c3 was played, but b takes c3, and queen b5, king c1 is very, very good for white. There is no perpetual check because of rook d2. If not knight c3, if not knight c3, this knight would be anyway lost, because let's say move like I don't know, g3. Then queen h8 is there, king e7, and still same ideas with queen d8, king e6, and queen g5. King is very bad, and it's very, very lost for black. So this position, Dubov's strategy was very, very correct. He wanted to take he kind of played psychologically because he knew that probably his opponent would feel bad when he's out of his comfort zone, and he would spend much more time, and then he would get chances. This is what happened. His opponent got good position, but he could not convert it because of time trouble and because the position was not clear at all over the board. Without engine, it was not clear, in my opinion. Now let's see another masterpiece, the game which I like very much. I like all games very much, but this game especially because the match situation was 1-0. We saw how Levon Aronian completely suffocated Maxim Malakhov, and Malakhov came back with huge energy to crush his opponent. d4, knight f6. Let's get through the opening section. It was semi-Tarrasch opening. The funny fact was that in tie breaks, Maxim won a brilliant game against semi-Tarrasch, but then he played himself. Yeah. So bishop c4, queen c7, queen e2, a6, a4, c takes d4, c takes d4, bishop d7, castle, rook c8, bishop d3. What is Malakhov doing? He's giving up the pawn on a4, but not just like that, of course. After bishop a4, d5 was played. You have to do something to use the fact that black is not developed, and that all your pieces are looking at the king side and his pieces are on queen side. E takes d5 was necessary, e takes d5, and bishop b5. E takes d5, e takes d5 probably Levon did not like, because there is a very nasty queen e4 threat. Let's say if you play bishop d6 to block this pawn on d file, then after bishop d6, queen e4 wins, because the bishop on a4 is hanging, and the pawn on h7 is hanging. If you play g6 to avoid it, after bishop b2, this diagonal gonna be disaster. If you play bishop e8 to get out of this threat, then after rook e1, if you move the bishop, bishop f6, then this is simply mate. So there is no defense for black. But what you should do, let's say if you play b5, then not d6, which came to my mind first, bishop d6 and queen e4 to have this double attack, because after g6, queen a8, there is knight c6, and now my queen is trapped. I wanted to win the rook, but I trapped my own queen. b5, just bishop b2, and the bishop here is very bad. Rook c1 is definitely a threat. Queen e4 as well. It's very, very dangerous for black. But ed, queen, bishop b5, bishop b5, a b5, and knight d4 would give a double-edged play. b4, knight f5, and bishop f8, queen g4. There, it looks like there is an attack, but black has definitely good resources to keep fighting and hold the position. Rook a6, rook g6, for instance, is a move I would consider. d5, knight d7 was played, e5, and obviously d6 is the problem. And here Levon made a mistake, took the pawn on d5. It was necessary to play knight c5 with the idea of d6, queen d7, and you cannot take on e7 because d3 is hanging. You can do, of course, bishop h7, king h7, and d6, queen d7, d takes e7, and queen d3. Very, very unclear position because black material is equal, but black has these 2 pawns on the queen side, although the bishops are a different color. Okay, ed5, e6, very, very strong move. Knight f8, you don't want to take it, because after take queen e6, you have to go king f8, and after king f8 to protect the e7, then after simple queen f5, there is bishop f6, then bishop a3 is winning, or knight f6, then knight g5 is winning, and knight e6 is there. So e6, knight f8, e takes f7, knight takes f7, and here computer was saying a very strong move, rook e1. White played here knight d4 with the same idea, but rook e1 was much stronger to keep this knight on f3, to have sometimes knight g5 or knight e5 moves and checks. What is the idea of rook e1? Let's say bishop f6. The idea is that this knight cannot defend everything, and queen e6 will be a huge threat if the knight is not on f8. So after bishop f6, bishop h7, knight h7, queen e6, king f8, and bishop a3 wins the game. If bishop h7 and g6, then just bishop h6. If rook e1 and rook e8, then just bishop h7, kind of, it's a pre-move to take on h7, bishop f6, and a very strong, the move I like very much, and I like this game very much, maybe my favorite game from all these games I showed you in this show, is that the game here is so complicated, there is nothing obvious. I tried to switch on engine and I tried to analyze the position, like what kind of moves I would consider and make, and there are only one move which wins. If one mistake, then everything is gone and the brilliancy is over. For example, here after bishop h7, bishop h6, knight g5 wins, bishop g5 and queen f3, and this is a bit unpredictable why it should win, because this is just a sacrifice. If I go bishop f6, what happens? Then queen d5, knight e6, and rook b7. Isn't this beautiful? Isn't this brilliant? You make f3 square free for the queen to get the d5 pawn and then the b7 pawn. This is brilliant. I loved it. I completely loved it. And I tried to play here move like, let's say g6, then black gets into knight e5, king g7, knight g4, bishop h6 is huge threat, bishop c5, also the bishop was hanging, and now very strong rook b7 because we need the e5 square. Bishop, queen b7, queen e5, king g8, and knight h6 mate. And move like h6, then knight e5, go to g8, queen f3, we want queen f7, queen d6, simple bishop a3 wins, queen f6, queen d5, queen e6, and knight g6. Also, I have to mention that king g8, queen e3 threatens to take the pawn on d5, so you cannot play move like bishop f6 because after queen d5 this is completely lost for black. So rook e1 was much stronger, but in the game knight d4 was played, and on knight d4 it only move that would save the game was king g8, knight f5, bishop f6, queen f3, bishop c6 to get all his pieces down, and bishop f4. Still a great compensation, of course, for white. Huge chances to attack, but of course it's not the same as in the game because our king is much safe than in the game. Bishop f6 was played, bishop h7, and now the same ideas. After bishop h7, if you take knight h7, queen e6, king f8, bishop a3, you should not forget that this bishop is still alive. It did not develop, but it is very important. Bishop e7, just rook bc1, and it's over. Bishop h7, g6, then bishop g6 wins. If knight g6, queen e6, king g7, knight f5, king h7, and knight queen f6, this is over. And after bishop g6, king g6, then queen g4, then queen g4, king h7, queen f5, king g7, and very nice, beautiful move, bishop h6, king h6, take on f6, king h7, and knight f5. Completely over. Yeah, we don't have peace, but the king is completely, totally without defense, and the rook will come, and it's just queen h6. Everything is a threat. So after bishop h7, we can consider that this game is very, very bad for black. He played queen e5, but queen e5 drops the b7 pawn, bishop d7, another strong queen g4 move. We want to take here now on d7, queen d4, rook d7, knight d7, queen d7, and bishop e7. King f8 would run into bishop a3 once again, or bishop g6 can also be played, but bishop a3 wins on spot. And after queen d7, bishop e7, rook e1, the game was finished very soon. Queen e5, we cannot take last trick, we cannot take here because it's mate on c1 and rook e1, but we can of course play bishop d2, rook d8, and queen g4. Black resigned here because he cannot do anything. If he plays like moves like queen d6, then there is bishop b4, queen b4, queen f5, bishop f6, queen e6, bishop king f8, and queen g8 is mate. Brilliant, very, very amazing and powerful game. Such calculations, I was simply amazed when I was following, because it is like not clear what is going on, but you feel the power of pieces, and you feel that your opponent cannot escape. Yeah, he gave a chance here when he played move knight d4 to go back, but still knight d4 he had in mind to take on h7, so it's brilliant that he saw this bishop h7 and all this move queen g4 and rook e1, queen e6. Sokolov said, Pramod is saying that Sokolov said this is a coffee house game, says Sokolov. He was impressed by Malakhov's play. Yeah, everybody was impressed with Malakhov's play, that he found the energy after such loss in the first round, and he kind of got back in the match with a brilliant win against who? Against number 2 Levon Aronian. And last game is the game of Kramnik against Ivanchuk. Another brilliant game, and we didn't expect that Kramnik would leave the tournament after third round, but he did, because if Vasily Ivanchuk has a good day, he can beat anyone. There is no, it doesn't matter who is in front of him. If he is in good shape, he can beat anyone. But I'm still supporting my husband today against him, so hopefully we will get very interesting and nice games. This is the position. Kramnik here went move c5, which is quite a big decision to close the center. Generally, when you make a move which closes the center, or when you exchange something and structure is different, it is very, very big responsibility. When you don't exchange anything and leave the situation same as in the center, then you're flexible. But when you change it, it's already different structure, and you have to take every detail into consideration. c5 was met with a very quick and energetic b6. There is no time to wait, right away break it. C takes b6, queen b7, and bishop c7. White could play rook c1, which probably would be better than in the game, queen b6, rook c2, and normal rook fc8, rook fc1, but I still prefer black's position. Yeah, I cannot go rook b8 because the bishop is here, but still b file is mine, a4 is strong, and I just think that black has slightly pleasant position rather than white. But Kramnik decided to defend this pawn with bishop c7, knight d7, and rook c1. Now we have to mention that knight b6 is a blunder because of queen b6, and everything is hanging, rook c6 and rook b6. That's why after rook c1, rook c8 was played. b4, very strong move, because if move like g3, then knight b6, bishop f4, knight a5, and all pieces are coming to queen side. This is definitely better for black. b4, a takes b3, queen takes b3, bishop a3, and if here rook a3, then queen b5 would give white better chances, because you cannot play rook a5, knight is hanging. And after queen b5, knight db8, knight b3, controlling the a5, it's already better for white. So bishop a3 with tempo, rook c3, bishop e7, and rook fc1. Here it was necessary to play for equality and play rook b1, knight b4 to get this b6 pawn, knight e5, knight b6, bishop b6, take everything on c8, queen f3 to bother this pawn on f7, bishop f6, knight d3, bishop e7. This is the computer line, which I found very interesting, how he finds draw in every position. But rook fc1 was played in the game, and after knight b4 it was not the same. Knight e5, you cannot take, he didn't want to take on b6, instead he went for knight e5, bishop e5, take, and queen b6. And this is already very, very pleasant position. He completely outplayed him, played fantastic, completely fantastic game. And the moment where it was clear that it's over is this position, he played here fantastic e5, emphasizing that this knight is hanging. If you take d takes e5, then king c5 is lost, and after e5 you cannot do anything on this with this pawn. Knight e4 would not help either. F takes e4 and d e4, just bishop e5 is there, so he played knight d7, but e takes d4, bishop d8 and d3. It's clear that the game would be over very soon. Though I definitely recommend you to see the game from this moment till e5. I'm just hurrying now to the playing hall. It's quite far, so I need a bit time to get there. I hope that you enjoyed this recap of round 3. And hopefully you didn't get too angry on my opinion about the scandal, but I think everybody has right to express their own opinion. I am sorry if I made somebody upset with my opinion. I wish good luck to you, and I wish that you enjoyed today's games. I wish good luck to Anish as well, and I'll be back after the tie breaks, after next tie break, so it will be after 3 days with the recap of round 4. Thank you very much for listening to me. Thank you very much for participating in the show, and thank you very much for bearing me and my opinion. See you after 3 days. Have a good day. Bye bye.